Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're so excited to have you with us today for the top 5 productivity reports to share with your executive team. We're going to give everyone just a couple of minutes to join. So while people are joining, I'm going to go through just a few housekeeping items. But first of all, I wanted to share something really special with you. We actually have another live session next Friday. It's our ActivTrak 101 Top Configuration Tips course. This is run by our customer success team. It is a live session to get any configuration questions that you might have that you haven't had answered before. And so I just want to call that out. It is the top link in the resources part of your dashboard, and I'm about to go through your dashboard, so just give me 1 second on that. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that we are recording today's session. We will send out the recording, all the resources, the slide, and then also a really helpful presentation template so that you can share the insights that we're going to cover today with your executives or quarterly business reviews, wherever you're going to be wanting to share these types of insights. We will also provide a really great template for you to be able to use. Before we turn over to today's session, I did want to kind of orient you to this dashboard in our platform. So if you look at the dashboard in thirds, you've got a left side, a middle section, and a right one. Starting in the top left, that's where you should be able to see the speakers who are going to be presenting today. So you should actually see me there right now. And then immediately below that, we have a question box where you can submit questions, or even if you just want to send in comments to us. We regularly have that, and I really enjoy that as I'm in the background answering questions if they're just one-offs or getting to interact with y'all. In the middle section, you'll see the slides at the top with the content for today, and then below you'll see 2 modules, one with those resources that I mentioned that have that ActivTrak 101 session in it that I mentioned earlier if you want to go and get some configuration help. And then also you'll see in a really easy and automatic way to submit a contact request to the team that actually goes to the team at ActivTrak box, which my team manages. And so it's an easy way to let us know, hey, I need help with this, or I'd like you to follow up with me on this, and we will make sure that you get to the right people at ActivTrak. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that along the bottom of the screen, you should see a couple of emoji reactions to share with us to let us know, are you liking the content? Are you not liking the content? That'll give us a really good idea of what you're really interested in, what is really hitting it with you today. And so please do remember to go ahead and, participate that way. So with that, I would like to go ahead and turn to today's session, the top 5 reports to share with your executive team. I'd like to invite our Chief Product Officer, Javier Aldrete, and Chief Customer Officer and Head of Productivity Lab, Gabriella Mauk, to join me, and then we'll take you through to today's content. Just a friendly reminder, ask those questions in the bottom left, share if you're liking or not liking it, and we will definitely be taking a look at that later. But as far as that's concerned, Gabriella, I will go ahead and turn it over to you to kick it off.
Thanks so much, Megan. I appreciate it. I didn't know we were able to also show that we weren't liking the material, so that puts the pressure on, I think, for the next 45 minutes.
You're welcome.
For joining. I'm so excited to review today's content with you. So many of our customers find themselves spending time using ActivTrak as a really valuable solution to quickly investigate something, but really where we see the unlock in the value of our solution is being able to have the right level of executive discussions that ultimately drive change. And so we want to make sure that we're taking some time today to equip you with what those higher level insights look like. And so that's exactly what we'll be doing. So with that, what we're going to do is we're going to start with just making sure that we sort of level set the very common topics that we're hearing among executive teams right now across our 9,500 customers. Customers of all sizes within our customer base are having a very common set of conversations around cost optimization, return to office policies, and the impact of AI. And so we'll be going over how we can look at those 3 things, leveraging our insights at an org-wide level so that we can be driving the right decisions across the business. For those of you who aren't yet familiar with our customer value map, this is always a really helpful grounding of our webinars. And so for those of you who have been to recent webinars, I'm sure you've seen us start just here, but bear with us because where you sit on the value map and where you need to sit on the value map might constantly be evolving based on what's top of mind for your executive team. Many of our customers arrive to ActivTrak with a really keen focus to better understand what's on the left-hand side of this view here. Cost optimization tends to be very top of mind, and particularly right now for many of our customers, as it relates to productivity. That involves being thoughtful about technology, compliance issues, as well as policy and schedule adherence topics. Though over time, we oftentimes see our customers begin to ask the question of, now that I've better driven expectations through the business around what people are doing and what those schedule expectations are, now I want to unlock even greater productivity through making sure that people have what they need to be working on the right activities with their time. As we all know, logging 7.5 hours a day on the wrong activities doesn't necessarily equate to the productivity output that you'd expect. And so what we'll do today is we'll talk about how we can take the insights, both that we glean from ActivTrak on the cost optimization side and on the revenue generation side of our value map, to help make more strategic decisions. At the heart of what ActivTrak does is it provides a level of insight into utilization expectations. You pay a workforce with an expectation of utilization, and there is oftentimes a gap between what that utilization reality is and what that utilization expectation is. And there in that gap exists an opportunity to make better decisions around how you make those workforce investments. So 3 top of mind topics, just waved 5 at you, but 3 top of mind topics for our executives today. One is cost optimization. In light of macroeconomic circumstances, I've had a lot of customers approach me in recent weeks and say, hey, our use cases right now are generally focused on A, B, and C, but really I need to have a better, bigger, aggregated level on where I have cost optimization opportunities. And so we'll talk about how you can leverage ActivTrak to do that. The second is not a new topic, but it is a persistent one, which is I'm not sure today that my return to office or my work location policy makes sense for what I'm trying to drive at as a business. Or more commonly, my executive team is split. I have a handful of executives that feel strongly that coming back into the office will improve our performance. And I have a handful of executives that are saying, if we do that, we will risk the retention of our employees, the engagement of our employees, and the current productivity levels that we have today, because we believe people are in fact more productive at home. And so I want to make sure that you have what you need to make those decisions, or at least equip your executive with those decisions so that they can have a better informed approach to the return to office policy. And then finally, the emergence of AI is leading to some really big investment decisions at the boardroom and at the executive level. But what is the actual intended impact of AI? And when we make those investments, are we seeing that intended impact? We'll go over how we can look at the impact of AI in the workplace in this particular use case. But for those of you who maybe aren't currently making immediate AI investments, this will hold true to any major technology investment that your business might be considering right now, or may have already made and is scratching their head and wondering if it's had the intended impact it expected. Javier, I'm going to flip it over to you and have you take the opportunity to go over sort of how we look at that cost optimization element as it relates to using our product and getting to some of those insights.
Thank you, Gabriela. Let me share my screen to do that. There you go. All right. So hopefully everybody can start seeing my screen with a financial loss report or dashboard in front of you. So the way we think about cost optimization from the product perspective starts with the concept of what Gabriela mentioned, which is most organizations pay salaries or pay hourly workers with an expectation of a number of hours worked, depending on the role or depending on the function of the particular individuals that you're doing so. And so the concept behind financial loss dashboard is that of looking for actual productive time against expected productive time in the form of productivity goals. So what you see behind this particular dashboard as it could pertain to cost optimization is the notion of looking for the gaps between that expectation and reality. And when we see a gap, we identify it, we measure it, and then we add it up for all the individuals in the different departments so that you can roll up all the exceptions to the executive level. And that's what you see in this particular report. So right now we have selected this for 3 departments: sales, marketing, and services. And what you're looking at is the identification of which different team members are under their goal. In this particular case, as examples, you see sales, 10 employees or users on their goal, marketing 3, services 4. And then we translate that, depending on the size of those gaps for each individual, to an untapped capacity full-time employee equivalent. And that is important because in some cases, the gaps are going to be small, a few minutes here and there. In some cases, it's going to be much larger. It could be an hour or 2 per day, which adds up very quickly. And so the aim of this is to be able to size that inefficiency in the workplace by team so that CXOs can identify where are their gaps to inform a number of decisions. First one and simplest is, hey, if there is going to be a request from any of these departments, specifically the sales team or the marketing team, which have the biggest untapped capacity, close to a person each, maybe the answer is we are going to hold new hiring until we address that untapped capacity. So that immediately does cost containment because you're not overhiring when you clearly have underutilization within those departments. The other form in which that happens is reallocation of efforts and resources in the form of, oh, okay, well, we have some untapped capacity here on this particular department. Can we give them a new project that can help you utilize that particular salary paid in a different way to the benefit of the business, right? So those are very simple ways in which you can think about that. Now, to give you a little more description of how this is read, is we're rolling up all that information. And in this case, we're looking at March of 2025 for this particular organization. There are in total 17 employees under goal that in aggregate represent the equivalent of 2 full-time employees. In this particular case, we're looking at around 25, 30 people sample data, but that's significant. And it represents 144K a year if we were not to address that, right? So that's how you can very quickly shed a light on what is the financial impact of that scenario that ties directly to that cost optimization use case. Now, from here, you can slice and dice some of that data and say, well, do we have some people that are really under that goal, below 5 hours, not just the goal being 7 hours, but are they really below that, and how egregious the problem is? You can also click and understand better how that is different from one department to another by just clicking on the name of the team. You'll see the rest of the information filter to denote a little more details of what's behind that. So you can see in this case, for instance, for the marketing team, even though it's only 3 people, some of these gaps are big because they are under 5 hours, 2 of those 3 individuals. And they're popping up recurrently month over month as depicted by those yellow and red bars, right? So this is a way, I'm not gonna go deeper into that, but this is a very quick way in which executives can identify which departments have inefficiencies and where we should take action. So to drill into that you might be asking is that, well, how do I empower the leaders of these teams to take action? I'm going to take you to another very helpful dashboard called the Headcount Planning Dashboard. And what this is meant to do is decide to help the leaders of those different departments or business units to get a little bit deeper into what's happening with their department and where are the gaps, where are the different teams within that department, or even all the way to individual contributors that are contributing to that. And so in this case, for instance, I selected that sales team that had the larger amount, and we can see which team members have significant gaps versus those that have middle of the road gaps versus low gaps or small gaps. And so this way you can inform, how do we get better? How do we make that trend chart that shows underutilization get better over time so that we address that capacity gap? Because ultimately, we don't expect everybody to be 100% utilized, but your goal should be closer to 90% utilization or 95, depending on the company, in the department, so that you can maximize that investment in the people, in the labor. So
yeah, Javier, I think one of the things that's so important to emphasize here is in your financial loss dashboard, as well as this one, these are examples of varying size organizations, right? But when I see this one in practice, across our customer base, I hear customers report a 8 to 10% improvement on cutting back on their payroll expenses, right? For some customers, that's $3 million. And for another customer anecdote, it's $33 million, right? But you take information like this and you combine it with the number of open requisitions that you have across your business, or you use it to inform your 2026 planning process, suddenly you're really driving at the cost optimization opportunity to slow the hiring that's taking place in your business, to stop backfilling roles, to stop opening every requested headcount when you come in and you have the ability to actually see the open capacity or the current waste levels that exist. So
That's
just
exactly right.
important to note, right? I mean, I think when you look at for those of you who are looking at this data, you've got to be able to apply this to either a 10-person organization or a 10,000-person organization and think about how these numbers change.
Yeah, and we have such a wide variety of our customers that are in those ranges of company size. But yeah, as Gabriela said, we have found somewhere between 15 and 30% gaps in utilization. And to Gabriela's point, people are able to see benefits very quickly to the tune of 8 to 10% of salary costs saved within the first 90 to 180 days. And so that's how you extrapolate this. But the key here is to view it as that of how does that connect to cost optimization, because that's the key question that executives have. And just to show you the last flavor of this, instead of now looking at investments in people, now we're going to look at investment of people through license and technology, right? Because companies obviously invest in people through different mechanisms. In this case, it's the tools that you buy for your employees to be proficient, to be productive, to generate revenue, et cetera. Here's the example of the technology license optimization BI solution, where you very simply get a chance to select which of the different tools that you have in your enterprise that you want to analyze. You add the number of licenses and the cost that you have to that in this particular solution. That's a data set that you provide and combine us with. And then we look for the gaps, similar that we do with the underutilization in the form of goals for people. We do with licenses. Hey, we bought this many licenses in this case for Zendesk, 27 licenses as an example, but we only have 10 people using it, right? So that gap, what does that represent? And how do we translate that into savings, into cost savings, in this case, $30,000, $31,000 of savings a year for this particular one technology. Now, if you apply that to other technologies, you get quickly to this chart where you can see where the biggest savings are, and that can help you also prioritize where you spend your energy attacking that cost optimization problem on the license front. So with that, I'm going to go back to help for Gabriela to help us kind of translate what the application does, what our product and solution does, into how you translate into a presentation for executives.
Excellent. Thanks, Javier. Just a quick head nod that you can see my screen. Yeah, you're now seeing the slides again. Perfect. Okay. So one of the things that we so often talk about, with one another as well as with our customers, is the fact that, for some of you, you might prefer to look at this in the application. You might prefer to quickly grab these details from a BI tool. But oftentimes when it comes to having executive conversations, it's also helpful to bring a slide, right? It's helpful to take this information, distill it to some of those more punchier, pithier takeaways that are going to help drive the decision that needs to be made. And so sometimes that looks like a one slide across all of these three topics. And sometimes that looks like something more focused on, say, cost optimization, like Javier just shared. In the case of having a higher level view, here what you can see is all three of those topics laid out on a slide that kind of scratches the itch of what a lot of executives are asking today. Some executives are asking questions around, hey, what are the leading indicators to the outputs that we're trying to drive across our business? And so for those of you who have joined me in webinars in the past or have consumed the ActivTrak material, we believe that ActivTrak is an input productivity indicator and that you already have in your environment output productivity indicators. And so at the executive level, the question becomes, are my inputs driving the critical outputs? So what you see here on the left-hand part of this slide is an input-output indicator set of signals. The input is that productivity is up 4%. And as a result, the codes shipped went up 13%. Or if we think about this from a marketing perspective, the productivity is up 8% in the marketing organizations, and the campaigns are also up 50%. From a sales perspective, the productivity is up 8%, and the pipeline advanced 8%. Being able to see insights like these help you understand that if your productivity and your effort is up in ActivTrak, the question becomes, is it also resulting in an improved output? When it comes to the health of your organization, executives want to know, what's the extent to which my organization is engaged? Is it at risk of burnout? Is there a high degree of underutilization? And what's the percentage of my organization that's healthy? In this example, when it says that the organization is 70% healthy, what it's saying is that 30% of the business might be disengaged or well under the productivity thresholds that you would expect, or that part of that 30% is burning out, working well above what that threshold is. Of course, these are insights that you can grab from ActivTrak, giving an overall understanding of health, not limited to perhaps the input that you get from an engagement survey on an annual basis, but something that you can pull on an ongoing basis for your executive team. For location, you can see here the ability to quickly report out on what the goals are of your workforce, that is remote, in office, or hybrid, and what they're actually working. And a very popular topic right now, the extent to which meeting time and focus time is being impacted by chat and messaging and in-office or digital meetings. So here's a quick view at a high level of this presentation on what you could share an executive team across all three of these topics. But let's go back to sort of what Javier has just shared with us around cost optimization specifically. Now, when it comes to cost optimization, we know that 83% of CXOs cannot measure the impact of workforce investments. We know that of those workforce investments, there's a lot of technology that's being invested in right now, and 50% of those software licenses go to waste, which is Javier's second set of reports, right? What's the license count you have on those reports, and how many of them are actually being used? Of course, your vendor is going to tell you that all 100 of your licenses have been used. What ActivTrak is going to tell you that yes, they've been used, but for 5 months, they've only been used by 17 people on a routine basis, and that the other 80 licenses have only been used once when everybody was told to click a link in an email, right? And so having deeper insights into how your software is being used not only sheds light on perhaps training and adoption exercises that need to be done, but also the expenses that can be recovered. Executives want to know, how do you measure the impact of your workforce investments, and how do you plan to address and improve them? And so specifically, if we take the insights that Javier just shared, when we think about the workforce investments, particularly your people, you want to be able to show that executive team, this is the percentage of my organization that's working the amount I would expect them to be working. They are healthy. This is the percentage of my organization that's underutilized. This is the extent to which we've improved productivity month over month, and we've led to savings across the business. And this is what our current loss is and what we know that we need to go tackle by improving the discipline around our headcount. These are the insights that really drive the conversations that need to be had at the executive level. Why is there so much untapped capacity across these teams? Should we be backfilling those roles? Is there a better org design that will drive greater productivity out of these teams? And how do we reduce that loss? In fact, a lot of customers have the ability to say, we don't have to consider a RIF if we can just consolidate this work or add more of a workload onto these untapped individuals and align them better to the work that needs to get done today. An example from a technology standpoint, if we just hone in on that technology conversation, is a piece around that license recovery. Again, if you aren't using ActivTrak today to get more value and more insight out of the tools that you've purchased and recoup some of those costs on where things are going on underutilized or not utilized at all, it's a really missed opportunity for your vendor management team, your IT team, your procurement team, to make sure that they're driving the decisions and those negotiations around those renewals based on what's currently used versus what is not, or what's inconsistently being used. Let's cover that second topic, which is a better deep dive on the return to office conversation. So we know that talent is being lost as a result to RTO mandates. For those of you who are on the call today, you might have witnessed this in another organization, or you might have experienced it yourself. Talent wants the flexibility of being able to come into the office or be fully remote. And so for that reason, we are approached by so many executives to better understand what's actually happening in their workplace. Are people adhering to the policy, and is the policy effective? Executives want to know, is the current workplace policy supporting the business, or is it hindering it? And so for that reason, I'm going to pass it back over to Javier and ask that you just walk us through how we find some of those details in the solution.
Of course, Ariella, thank you. Yeah, so now I'm gonna share with you or demonstrate to you our location capabilities, and we have location in a couple of places, but the one that I think it's more conducive to answering both questions that Gabriela outlined, the compliance question and the efficacy of the policy, is what I'm kind of cover in this demo. So here in the Location Insights dashboard, you can go into the tab view, and so I'm going to start there and then zoom out for a second. But in the users tab, you can easily see what is the summary for each individual over a time period. So in this case, imagine that you're preparing a presentation or a report to your executives on how is the policy going, who is adhering against that policy. In this particular case, we'll use a scenario where the people are expected to be 1 day in the office at least, right? So 4 days a month or 4 days every 4 weeks. And so I'm going to show you how in this report you can filter with these filters in the top of the screen to show me anybody that has less than 4 days in the office in the last 30 days. That would allow us to find people that is not going at least once a week on average to the office. And so very quickly you can get to the list of people that are in that scenario. Now, in some cases, you have mixes of folks. You have folks that have been remote only. They have not showed up any of the days in the office, in any of the weeks to the office. They have 0 days there. 0% of their time is in the office, or even partial days in the office, even if it's not a full day in the office. Whereas some of them are hybrid, meaning they are working some days in the office, some days from home. So they have showed up some days at the office, but there's not enough days, right? So some people are very close to the goal. For instance, this particular individual, Ryan Howard, has 3, but not quite 4, so therefore didn't meet that particular policy. Whereas others are really just completely ignoring the policy, showing up 0 days in this last 30, right? And so this is a way in which you very quickly can say, where is the policy working? Where is it not, right? Who are the folks that are adhering with it, who are not? And then if you zoom out some of that information, you can also see that here in the front part of this dashboard of how many people are remote only, how many people are hybrid, so that you can get a sense of that. And what is the trend of that adherence, right? In this case, you can see that just a percentage of the population are showing up at the office. Most folks are remote only, right? And then even this week, there is nobody that has showed up to the office so far. Right. So this is the way in which you can see is the policy being complied against? And then second, for those that are complying with it, are we seeing the right levels of productivity and interaction that we expect? And this is where you can see here at the top, the breakdown of people, what is their productive time when they are remote, when they are office remote, meaning in the same day they did a little bit in the office, a little bit remote, and then with those that are 100% in the office. And you can see that the digital time, productive time is lower in the office or office remote, probably because of commute and other reasons, but they're complementing it with the offline meeting time, basically face-to-face meetings that are making up that gap for that. So it tells us that the policy is working for those that are adhering to it. So here you have less of a problem of the productivity necessarily in this particular sample set that I'm showing you, but more with adherence against the policy, right? So in other cases, there might be the case that the data or the productive time is not showing up as expected or the outcomes that you want. and therefore you might revise the policy. But in this case, this seems to be more of a policy compliance challenge. So with that, I'll share it back to Gabriela to show how to report on it.
Awesome. Thanks, Javier. We see a lot of customers take a screenshot of that very report. It gives a really nice view of the breakdown of your remote workforce, the way that productivity varies, et cetera. But sometimes there's just a desire, again, I think, to continue to distill it or to give a couple key takeaways. I oftentimes see executives wanting to better understand how the policy is being enforced and then how effective it is. Reason being, it's easy to assume that the policy is not effective and gloss over the fact that no one's enforcing the policy that was put in place. So many of our customers arrive to us with a different use case than location, and they report that they're using badging data to understand whether or not their policy is working. But the reality is, what happens after someone's badged in, or without understanding whether or not they've badged out, there are a lot of big blind spots in those types of insights. And so what the ActivTrak data allows you to do is it allows you to say, okay, are the people who are supposed to be coming into the office 3 days a week coming into the office and being productive in the same way we expect them to be productive when they are remote? Are the people who are fully remote working, starting during those core hours that you might have set, or working those hourly expectations that you might have, but perhaps across a work day, but not necessarily between that 9 to 5 timeframe? The ActivTrak data is giving you more detailed insights regardless of what that location may be. And it's also giving you the insight into whether or not that's in accordance to the strategy that you've set out. Here you can see a few visuals from what Javier had just walked over, but also the ability to say what's the expectation and what's the actual rate here. All right. With that, let's move on to the third topic. That third topic is the impact of AI. I'd be curious to understand, those of you who have joined us today, which organizations are really beginning to make an investment into AI, and whether or not those investments have any sort of trackable method to understand whether or not they're going to have the return that you expect them to have. What is your strategy for understanding if that AI investment has actually changed the workload on your workforce? What is your strategy to understand how you'll repurpose the time that you expect to get back when AI has reduced the amount of administrative work that you expected your workforce to be spending their time on? 72% of generative AI usage in organization happens outside of IT's control. And so that is another key piece of, not only are you making investments in AI, but there's also AI usage that's happening that you're not aware of. And so not only could that have positive benefits on the way in which work is getting done, but it also could introduce a level of risk in your environment that you're not aware of. And so we're going to talk about two things when Javier goes over a set of insights today. One, do you have the introduction of AI usage that is not sanctioned by your business, and is it posing a risk to your business? And two, how are you thinking about the impact of your AI investments, and how is that leading to org design decisions or to other decisions that should drive greater expectation on your workforce? So Javier, I'm going to pass that back over to you for one last demo.
Perfect, thank you. Hopefully everybody can see that now. So now what I'm gonna, the feature that I'm gonna use to talk about the impact of AI, and by the way, this could apply to other technologies that you are rolling out to your corporation, but we're gonna focus it now on AI. But it's the notion of utilizing impact analysis, our impact feature, for that purpose. In this case, what we have defined is, what this feature allows you to do is define segments of people, timeframes, and locations, and even days of the week to compare against each other. So what we did here is we define a segment that talks about folks that were analyzing utilization of different technology types and categories for a segment before the AI was rolled out, and another one after. Right, so we can compare the before and after, and the impact of this AI rollout for the sales team specifically in this particular organization. So in this case, I have the A segment is the after and the B is the before. So you can see here on the right-hand side that the before scenario, there was a lot of time spent on internal collaboration technologies and time spent on that. Slack, meaning chat and messaging, meeting software, etc. But there wasn't enough time spent on Salesforce or CRM tools or even email to outreach to customers. And the goal of the AI was to help the sellers spend less time on this internal administrative or collaboration activities and more time outreaching and communicating with customers and doing account management plans and so forth in the CRM. So after the rollout of this particular AI technology, we see what happened and where is the shift in allocation of time. In this case, working as intended, because you have more people moving into activity spend or time spent on email, on CRM, and less time on other activities, even prospecting, which was not even showing up in the before picture, now is starting to show up here in the after picture, right? So this by no means is a success, perfect success, but it shows you, is it moving the needle? Is this new technology and the rollout approach that we did with that moving the needle, right? In terms of people spending more time in high value activities and less time in low value activities, even if both of them are business activities, right? And to zoom it out from there, you can also do a comparison in the aggregate of, okay, we did that, it did the right behavior, but did it come at any expense? Did we get people in the unhealthy bucket? Did people become less focused, et cetera? And so this is where you also compare summary statistics like productive time, like it had no effect on productive time, which is great. It means that people are working the same hours, but they repurpose them into the more valuable types of activities, and people are more focused, people are equally healthy, and they even have more break time, right? So this helps you assess from multiple angles. Not only are you spending time in the right activities, but also overall, are people still healthy and engaged and not causing adverse effects in the aggregate for the organization?
Right. Yeah, I just can't emphasize enough, Javier, right? This is a really valuable report for your AI investments, but it's a really valuable report for any form of technology investment. In fact, when you think about pairing together the cost optimization use case with the impact use case, you have the ability to say, does the introduction of this technology improve productivity, or does it actually have an impact? And how many people are using it? And is the impact low because the adoption is low, or is the impact low because the technology is not having the impact we expected? And so again, for those of you who are making investments in AI, this is a very top of mind report right now. But for those of you who are making any sort of transformational investment, I'd highly recommend looking at some of these insights. All right, so if we take a look at a couple of key reports that have an impact in the executive discussions that need to be had, one that I want to make sure I raise is the ability to show a single piece of technology's impact on people's work habits. In this case, you can see that in this particular example, this is looking at a sales team that was introduced to an AI tool that was really intended to reduce the amount of non-core time the time they were spending on non-core activities and increase the time they were spending on core activities. Because with the ability to reduce the administrative workload using AI, we would expect to see in the before example, a lot of the light green activity, which is non-core to their work. And on the right side of this example, an increase in dark green, which is more time spent on core work. For those of you who are familiar with our activity alignment feature, the purpose of this feature is to allow managers to identify what is core to their team's success and what activities are not core to their team's success. And so now the conversation has shifted to enriching the quality of time in which people are working on the things that drive results. And so the introduction of this AI tool led to less non-core time, more core time, which could then equate to better results. You can see here that this isn't just a leap, which is, well, they were just told to start spending more of their time on core activities. You can see in the top graph that the adoption of the AI tool itself aligns with the timing of the increase in the core activities here. showing that these investments very likely are having the positive impact that you would expect. All right, so for those of you who are either on an executive team or are helping prepare your executive to have these conversations, just a few final points that I think are worth calling out. It's really important that when you're presenting to executives or you are an executive presenting to your peers, that you have a clear line of sight of what good even looks like, what your goal is, so that this data doesn't become more of a head scratcher than it does a productive conversation. If you come out to your team and you say, well, our average productivity across the organization is 6.7, people will look at you and say, well, what did you expect it to be, right? And what did you want it to be? Or what goal did you set? And so it's really important that whether you're producing insights around cost optimization, return to office, or the impact of any form of technology, that you have set a goal in your partnership with ActivTrak. If your goal is that people are working 7 hours a day, then make sure that you've put that goal into your solution and that you're getting the insights into how people are performing to goal. This is critical for the right conversations. The second thing that's critical is that you're taking action on these insights. If people are currently averaging 6.5-hour days and the goal is 7 hours, what are you doing to move that 6.5 up towards 7? Now, a fast way to improve those numbers is stop hiring additional roles and put out an expectation that those people are filling their time before you're hiring more headcount. And that's going to make that number naturally move up towards that 7 hours, because people are going to be forced to figure out how to redistribute or distribute that workload accordingly. Other ways in which you can be improving productivity is providing more training and adoption around those technology tools, driving clearer expectations around when and what people should be working on, holding managers accountable to enforcing your RTO policy. Make sure that you have a clear roadmap for who's driving the actions to improve these results. It's helpful over time that you look at trended data so that you can see improvement. And it's also helpful to make sure that you're constantly positioning our insights as a leading indicator of success. When people are increasing their effort on those core activities, this is a leading indicator to the results that your executives want to see. Oftentimes, executive meetings and discussions are so much about what has happened and what needs to happen in the future. And as a result, it's frequently too late, or if it's not too late, it's later than you want it to be. And so making sure that you're positioning these insights as leading indicators of what's to come helps make this for a really fruitful conversation around how to get ahead of the results and the performance needs that your business has. So with that, I want to make sure I just highlight the resources that are available to you. Of course, we'll have the ability to review this webinar, take some of these slides and tailor them to your own executive conversations. Leverage our ActivTrak Academy to understand some of these short videos on the different reports that we went through today so that you can interpret them. And of course, for those of you who have a customer success manager, of course, you have a direct line to a resource that can walk you through some of these activities. So Megan, I think I stole a little bit of your thunder there, and so I'll pass it back over to you and help you sort of wrap us up.
Yeah, no, you're always welcome to steal away, Gabriella. Absolutely. Well, thank you both for presenting on that content. I think that was super interesting. I know I even learned a few bits that I wasn't even quite familiar with. I did want to go ahead and just mention to everyone in the audience, if you do have any questions, go ahead and put them in. I have seen and answered some that were, specific to certain things while people were listening to the content and whatnot. So if you have any questions that are good for the broader audience around this content, please go ahead and put those into the question area in that bottom left spot. I think what I'd like to do is I'm going to go ahead and move to the next slide. So one question we did have was, just kind of around where are these reports? What plan do you need to have access to them? Again, we will be sending out these slides. So this will be a good handy reference for you to be able to kind of understand. And then all of these links will be clickable for you. So you should be able to just click on them very easily, as well as have the crumbs to be able to navigate to them. So just as this is kind of that high level overview. And so I did want to go ahead and just ask from, the perspective of following up, pop up a real quick poll as people are asking questions. If you'd like to, continue the conversation, some people may be on an advanced or essentials plan and might be super interested in some of these reports that they don't have access to. Same for those who are maybe not on premium or professional, or our ActivConnect BI solution. So that's sort of the way that we can integrate into those different BI tools, whether that's Power BI or Tableau, or there's a few others that we also can plug into. So would love to pop up that poll right now so that we can get, and you can just kind of respond and let us know what you're interested in hearing from us. Also, again, we have that contact us module in the dashboard. You can just send us a note and let us know if you want to be connected with your team, or if you have questions or anything like that. We will definitely respond. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look and see if there are any additional questions for the group here.
Interrupt you for a second.
No, of course.
When we go ahead and we fill out this poll here, that ActivConnect piece is really your path to those BI reports that Javier went through today, right? So if you're looking at these insights and you're saying, I like what I see in my platform and I like what I see in the application, but I do think my leaders would prefer to view this data in Power BI, or I do think it would be easier for me to look at this data in Tableau, or I do think that I'd like to look at my financial loss with actual salaries, not a standardized salary, or I'd like to look at my untapped capacity alongside how many open requisitions I currently have across my 10,000 person organization. That's what that ActivConnect unlock is for you, which is the ability to bring that data into that BI tool and do that deeper level of analysis. So I know that you sort of touched upon them here, but I as someone who works with so many customers week over week, I oftentimes think we gloss over exactly what that is. But if you see yourself wanting to be able to look at the array of BI templates that we offer to our customer base as a part of this offering, let us know and we can tailor that to what you're looking to do.
Okay. No, I love that. Thanks for that additional context, and you're totally right. Sometimes we need to dive a little deeper on some of those things. So that's great context. Okay, well, I think what I've seen as far as other questions or comments in the chat are, thank you, love the content, we're really interested in these reports. So that's really great feedback to hear. And again, we're always here for you. So if y'all have questions, you can always reach us, team@activtrak.com, and we will make sure that you get to the right spot.
Megan, I'm sorry to interrupt you again. we're on a roll. But one thing that we neglected to add, in my fault, on the prior slide, is that financial loss analysis. And some of you have asked this question. That is going to be available for all customers in Professional and Essentials Plus starting on Tuesday. So right now, some of you may already have access to it, a small sample size as we roll this out in batches. But for those of you that were asking, hey, I have Professional, but I don't see it, you will get it on starting on Tuesday. So we'd love to get your feedback after that. But I just wanted to address that question for the broader audience.
And to further clarify, the roles that will have access to that by default are?
Administrator and configurator are the two roles that will get it by default, and then you can choose to expand it to more roles if you choose to, or just keep it to that group. At that point, you'll get comfortable with it and decide when to expand it further.
Yep. So I know I had a couple people I was chatting with and kind of looking up what their roles were when they were asking about it. And so if you are not an admin or a configurator, just reach out to your admin and let them know that you saw this awesome report and you'd really love to have access, and then they can help you figure out those permissions and whatnot. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. I think some people have really long weekends planned, so I hope everyone has a great one. And we will have another awesome session next Friday, that ActivTrak 101. We'd love to see you there for some configuration tips and tricks. And then, of course, in June, we will be bringing you a couple more webinars. So keep your eye on your inbox or in the product for those notifications, and we'll see you then. Thanks.
Thanks all.